Good evening, everyone. In today's webinar, we'll be focusing on GRE vocabulary, especially strategies and tips to learn more words. At the outset itself, I would like to mention that this is not a webinar where you learn many words. Here, you will learn how to learn words so that we are not going to end up with a list of maybe 20 words. You're going to take away a technique that you can apply for GRE preparation as well as afterwards in your academic pursuits. Okay. So what is a GRE vocabulary and why is this so daunting for everyone who takes the GRE test? So almost all the test takers who take GRE worry about vocabulary. Even people who are fluent in English and are comfortable using English correctly, they struggle with GRE vocabulary because these are words and phrases that you don't actually use in everyday context. These are rooted in academic language, academic texts, and so many people don't tend to know these words. Sometimes you would have seen these words, but you don't know what they mean. And you need these words to answer the questions on the GRE. And so it becomes very difficult when you see these words on the test. So that's why everyone focuses on GRE vocabulary for the GRE test. And if you look at the internet resources, you will find that there are 800 word lists, 3,000 word lists, 3,500 word lists. You can get a book on GRE vocabulary, but how do you master these words? Is it possible to do it, or is it impossible? So we are going to look at all that. Just remember that scores of students like you have attempted the GRE before. They've also managed to boost their scores by using the right strategies and tips. So it's not just what you do, but how you do it. And we are going to look at the how today. The first question is, why do you need to learn vocabulary for the GRE? So in the GRE verbal reasoning section, we have broadly three areas of question types. One is reading comprehension, and the other two are text completion and sentence equivalence questions. In the reading comprehension questions, you'll be given a passage, and the questions will be based on the passage. In the other two kinds of questions, you'll have a short piece of text with blanks. And it is these question types that are centered around vocabulary. But this doesn't mean that the reading comprehension passages don't depend on your vocabulary knowledge. They do. But these are the question types that are explicitly centered around vocabulary. If you are not aware of this, I would like to just explain what these question types are. Text completion questions involve a short text where you have one blank, two blanks, or three blanks. If you have one blank, you are given a set of 5 options to choose from. If it's 2 or 3 blanks, for each blank, you get 3 options to choose from. And these options are words, not just words, complex words that you are not likely to encounter in your day-to-day life. These are rare words. Sentence equivalence questions are somewhat similar, but you have just one blank and you have to choose 2 options from 6 options. And the objective here is to pick 2 words that when inserted into the sentence would produce a sentence with the same meaning. Here, the words you pick need not be synonyms. That is, they need not mean exactly the same. But when inserted into the sentences should mean similar. They should convey something similar. Okay, that is the basic idea. So if you look at the descriptions of the question types itself, you would realize that you actually need to know the meanings of complex words to answer these questions. Not only the meaning of the words in the options, but also the meanings of the words in the text itself. Because the text supplies clues and the structure of the text, the words used, everything is a clue for you to pick the right option. So for dealing with these questions, you need a good mastery of vocabulary. In reading comprehension questions, you have to read through long and complex passages. So it looks somewhat small when you compare it to the text you read in class or for your college activities, but it's densely packed. Reading comprehension in the GRE is densely packed with information, and you have to be very active as you read. And having a good vocabulary will also help you understand these passages. And even some of the questions on these passages are vocabulary centric. So this is why you need to learn vocabulary for the GRE. And if you list down the words you need, you will end up with thousands of words. But we are not going to look at the impossibility of the task. We are going to see how it's going to be possible to tackle the vocabulary on GRE. These are some of the commonly asked questions. Students wonder how they can memorize so many words or what to do if the vocabulary is too hard or complex. And sometimes it's not easy to memorize, it's not easy to commit words to memory. So, how to tackle this? And what most people do is they get overwhelmed and they just look up word lists and start learning the words. But this is not going to work because even if you think of how you pick up words in your life, like how you picked up your first language or even English when you first encountered it, you would have come across words repeatedly in different situations. Slowly, they would have gotten into your head. You would have understood the meanings of the words. Slowly, would have associated a word with a certain concept, and then comes the usage of the word. There are different situations in which you can use a given word, and you learn all this without being quite aware of it. Okay? But the problem is when you're tackling a test like the GRE, that too within a short frame of time, it's not easy to apply the same strategy. You don't have all the time in the world. But so that's when you need a strategy. That is, you're looking for specific kinds of words. That is, GRE kind of words, academic, complex kind of words. So how do you tackle these questions? Right? How do you tackle these words? So just remember that to learn any kind of vocabulary, the basic idea is that you have to remember a word and connect it to a certain concept. If you see the word tree, TREE, the picture of a tree perhaps comes to your mind. Maybe some experiences you had with trees might come to your mind, or some drawing you drew would come to your mind. There are certain associations that come, right? So it is these associations that we should work on. We should try to build associations between GRE kind of words and their concepts in your mind. And it's better to focus on a smaller range of words rather than mugging up so many words and ending up remembering nothing. Okay. So let's see how we can memorize so many words. We'll be discussing many strategies to learn new words. But the first and primary thing I want to emphasize is that you need to be slow and steady to win this race. We'll be looking at how you can learn words in context through word associations, how you can learn words through by focusing on roots and affixes, by creating stories, and how you can practically apply all these strategies. So why are we saying that you should learn vocabulary slowly and steadily? We already saw this. It's not easy to just remember words and meanings. You might get it at that time, but if you take words like abdicate or adjudicate, base, everything sounds similar in the end. If you have a word list, at least 10 words that appear consecutively will sound similar to you. So at that point, you might think you got the word, but later on, it's not there in your mind. And the options are especially tricked to confuse you. So there is no use in cramming your brain with more words than you can manage. So set a target goal, look at the time you have, look at how many words you want to master, and set a realistic goal and start working on your goal. The key to achieving any goal is consistency. If you do something steadily and continue to do it over a period of time, definitely you will see your result. Now let's move to our vocabulary strategies. The first strategy is to learn words in context. This is something you have been doing your entire life. When you talk to other people, or when you read books, when you watch movies, TV shows, whatever you do, and you see new words around you, and you start picking up their meanings. So this is what you're doing. So, and most of the times you will not be running to a dictionary. You would just be inferring or making conclusions of the meaning based on the situation or based on the tone of certain people, or if there is a sarcastic comment in a TV show, you would understand that okay, something was meant there that you didn't quite catch. Then slowly you start guessing the meaning of the word. This is the best technique to learn words, because then you are not learning a word in isolation, but you are learning it along with its usage. But this is time consuming. It might not be feasible to learn all words this way, yet this is a useful technique that we can adopt. Why is learning in context important for the GRE? It's important because you don't just need the meanings of a word. The GRE won't ask you what is the meaning of frivolously. It just doesn't ask you that. It gives you a sentence and you have to use it there. So if you don't know how to use the word, and if you don't know if a word fits into a context or not, then your vocabulary knowledge doesn't count. So that's why we need the context as well. Let me give you an example. In sentence equivalence questions, The correct answers are not just synonyms or words that mean the same, but they can just be placed in the sentence and convey the same sense. So you should know which words fit into the context and which words don't. If you just pick synonyms, you might be going wrong. Take, for example, the words lucid and luminous. Both these words mean bright or radiant, right? But lucid can also refer to clarity, coherence, comprehensibility. So if you use luminous in a place where this meaning is conveyed, then you would be going wrong. The relation of the lucid stars to the galaxy was first identified by Sir Z. Here, lucid stars most probably refers to bright or radiant stars. In the second sentence, she seems to be an admirable teacher with a great power of lucid exposition. Here, lucid exposition refers to clear explanation. Here, you cannot convey the meaning of bright. So, if you use the word luminous here, then you would be going wrong. If it's a sentence equivalence question and you just pick luminous, then that's wrong. Lucid would be a correct answer, but luminous would be wrong. And remember that you don't have partial credit for any questions of the GRE. So you need to get all your options right. While lucid would be an appropriate fit for both blanks, luminous would not make sense in the second sentence. So you need to focus on the context. Now, this is the importance of the context. How can you use learning in context as a strategy for the GRE? Imagine reading a text. So pick texts that are of GRE level language, maybe old GRE test passages, or you can read journal articles, or I'll be giving you a few suggestions towards the end on what materials you can use for reading. So when you read these texts, I want you to read actively. So if you follow the technique that I'm about to teach you, you'll not only master vocabulary, but also a technique to reading passages properly. Okay. So don't just go on reading a passage, but notice the things that are there. Notice the words that are used, whether there are some relations between the words. Notice the punctuation marks and transition words. Here you don't have many, but you might have words like therefore, however, moreover, words that connect sentences to one another. So notice how these ideas flow, and based on that, you will be getting an understanding of the passage. Let us read this passage and try to guess the meanings of the words in blue. You might know the meanings of these words, but this exercise is purely to demonstrate how you can understand the meanings of words from their context. It was not until the last decade of the 19th century that the genesis and exhibition of a work of sculpture stirred up artistic controversies comparable to the scandals caused by, there's an impossible name, the Courbet's Le Cassou de Pierre and Manet's Olympia. So now you don't need to know about these works. You don't need to be able to pronounce them. I'm unable to do it. That's not important here. The important thing here is that you should just consider this as, you should understand this is a work of sculpture, right? That's all you need to know. Now you're trying to understand the meanings of the word scandal. So do you find anything that is similar to scandal in the sentence? Yes, controversies, right? How do you know the two are related? You see that the controversies are comparable to the scandals. So if you don't know the meaning of scandals also, you can understand it's somehow related to controversy, something that is being debated. Maybe it has a negative undertone as well. We don't know. So controversies generally have this tendency to just boom up and affect everyone, right? It's just discussed all over. So maybe scandals are related to that meaning. Let's read the second sentence. Rodin's statue of Balzac, exhibited at the Salon de la Société Nationale in 1898. Okay, I don't need to read that either. Represented for some the long-awaited manifesto of modern sculpture. So Rodin's statue, I don't need this information, right? If you observe the commas, you find that this is this part from exhibited to 1898. It's not actually required for understanding the sentence, right? So let's read the rest of the sentence. Rodin's statue of Balzac represented for some the long-awaited manifesto of modern sculpture. So what would manifesto probably mean? So it represented. So this is something to do with representation probably. And it's long-awaited. So it's maybe something you're expecting, some kind of representation. So this, you cannot infer everything from context, but I'm just trying to see how you can understand word meanings from context. Now, for most, the predicted failure of a talented sculpture, and for all, a challenging monument of undeniable historical and artistic significance. So here I'm going to apply a different kind of inference. Here you see for some, for most, and for all. For some, this statue was the long-awaited manifesto of modern sculpture. It's something positive, I guess. For some, for most, not some, it's a predicted failure of a talented sculpture. For all, it is a challenging monument of undeniable historical and artistic significance. So for this, for all is pitted against this for some and foremost. So while some people have differences of opinion, everybody thinks that this is a challenging monument of historical and artistic significance. So this undeniable must surely have some degree of finality to it. It's more certain, right? And if you look at the word itself, you can also see that deny is a part of this word, undeniable. So if you know the meaning of deny, you can try and guess the meaning of undeniable. I'll not be proceeding to the rest of the passage in detail, but I would just try to draw your attention to a few things. Here, in this sentence, you find the word and. So when is and or used to connect sentences? These connectors usually connect fragments that are equally important. So this part, from rodents to intrigues, is equally important to the artist's problems with commission, so on, till later's problem. So these are comparable things. These are equal things. So maybe this part has some relation to what follows it. Okay. So you can try and guess that. So here intrigues are mentioned, and then it's mentioned that the artist had problems with the commission. So intrigues maybe are some kind of conflicts, some kind of problems in this context. So here I was just looking at the connecting word to understand this. In this section, if you look at this, you find a dash. A dash is often used to add additional information or to elaborate or emphasize something. So you can see that maybe these are the kinds of criticism that are being discussed, because that's indicated by the dash here. So this is a way of reading RC passages on the GRE, as well as a way of preparing for vocabulary. So if you're planning to take the GRE, try and read more and more. So when you read, you're not focusing on learning words, you're not worrying. You're doing two things at once, 2 words in 1 stone. So you're learning to read GRE passages actually. If you notice, this is not maybe how you read passages. So I just looked at the words and the punctuation marks. If you are to look at this in more detail, as we'll do in our subsequent webinars, we'll be looking at each idea, how that idea is related to the next idea, how the ideas flow, what the main idea is, what the main purpose is. And when we observe all these things, we get an in-depth understanding of the passage. And this is what you require in the GRE. Right? So try to read more GRE passages, and as you read, underline words that you don't understand and try to figure out their meanings from the context. So this will help you tackle reading passages, and slowly you can note down these words and add them to your vocabulary list as well. So this is technique number 1 for learning vocabulary. Let's move on to technique number 2, word associations. So here you would be associating new words to certain things. So as I spoke earlier, when we learn a word, we link it to a concept in our mind. We have certain images. Even if you think of words like trust, okay, here you don't have an image, but maybe you remember someone who you love, right? Someone whom you actually trust. So there is some link between a word and a concept, some abstract link, and sometimes it appears crazy in your mind. It's maybe something you only understand, but it doesn't matter. As long as you're able to grasp the meaning of the word and its usage, it's fine. So here you're going to use this way your brain works. You're trying to link information together so that it's stored better in your mind. Okay, so mnemonics are a great technique for helping with retaining information in your brain. If you remember the famous ABC song, it still is there in your mind, and whenever you want to remember the order of the letters in the alphabet, you just go back to the ABC song. Or when you want to think of VIBGYOR, the colors in the rainbow, you just go back to this acronym. You might also remember how we think of directions. We stand facing east, I guess, and then we know this way points to the north and that way points to the south. And there are certain techniques we have always been using to remember stuff. So let's try and use that to learn vocabulary. Get as crazy as possible, be creative, and also construct sentences when you learn new words. To demonstrate this, I'm going to give you a few mnemonics that I could come up with. Remember, these are personal mnemonics. Maybe these are only relatable to me. These might not work for you. These are just for example's sake for you to think of mnemonics on your own. So I have an affinity for Avengers Infinity War. So here, what would that probably mean? Affinity and infinity sound similar, so maybe I'm likely to remember the sentence. So I have an affinity for Avengers Infinity War. I like Avengers Infinity War. So I have a liking for Avengers Infinity War. So this is a mnemonic that you can use to learn the word affinity. Now, this is a very specific example. Some of you might not understand what this is. If you remember the movie Onion or Aparichidudu, I don't know what it was called in Hindi. Okay. But in this movie, you have three characters that are played by Vikram. These are his three personalities, and he keeps switching, and that is the fun of the movie. But it's never quite clear when he's going to switch, right? So it's not very clear when Vikram is Ambi, Remo, and Onion in the movie Onion, right? So this is one way in which you can remember the word ambiguous. Note how the letters A and BI are also part of the name of the character Ambi. So this is a way of remembering the word ambiguous. But a word of caution here: ambiguous. This can be a confusing mnemonic. AMBI can also be a part of many words, right? And it might get confusing if you stick to a mnemonic like this. But I just wanted to demonstrate. Please give me a second. Okay. Now this is another funny acronym. I briefly ate. Abbreviate. I briefly ate. So if you are a person who likes comic pieces like this, maybe you would like this mnemonic. Monica in Friends is nitpicky and finicky. Monica is a character in the famous show Friends, and she is quite particular about little things. She's nitpicky, she's finicky, and so this is something I might actually remember. And these words sound similar also. The sun is always sleeping on the hummock in my drawings. Okay, now this is a weird way in which I am likely to remember this word hummock. Okay. So we usually sleep on hammocks, right? But this is the hummock. Hummock means a hill or a small kind of hill or some kind of thing like that. So here, whenever I draw things, I only know to draw the sun setting between the hills. So the sun is always sleeping on the hummock in my drawings. And now I'll never forget this word again since I came up with this mnemonic. This is a different kind of mnemonic that I just included so that you will get an idea about it. Here I have included expansions for each letter in this word. Rita always can ornately narrate the ever unforgettable Romeo and Juliet. So Rita is a good narrator of stories. She is a raconteur. Okay, so this is a technique you can use as well. Variegated. So this word is confusing for me because I think it means something similar to diverse, but it actually refers to an assortment of colors. So I want to remember that it refers to various colors and not just various things. So here is a visualization for that I'm likely to remember. I just want to imagine heaven as having gates and various colors. This is just a fantasy that I have, and maybe it will help me remember the word variegated in the future. So here is technique number 2. And remember, this is highly, highly personal. The first technique we looked at is deeply academic. You're looking at passages in depth. Here, though, it's something really fun. Maybe if you are studying in a group and many friends are preparing for the GRE together, maybe this might work. You can coin these funny acronyms and your GRE test prep might even be fun. Now, moving to strategy number 3, we are going to look at word associations. Sorry, this is the continuation of the previous strategy. So here, ebullient means energetic and cheerful. This is yet another example. This is not exactly a mnemonic, but here you are going to look at words within words. So here, ebullient contains the word bull. Bull is a strong and energetic animal. And the Red Bull is a drink that gives you energy. So whatever helps you remember it. So now you will remember that ebullient means rather energetic and cheerful. She sounded ebullient and happy on the phone. So remember to always coin sentences once you're done so that you remember how the word is used as well. Nebula is a cloud of gas or dust in space. If you're a science student, you might be familiar with this concept. So if you think of the nebula, it's maybe hard to see through it, right? So nebulous means something that is unclear or indistinct. Cloud computing is a nebulous concept covering a range of ideas. It's hard to see through it. It's quite unclear. Obsequious means obedient and submissive. If you break this word into two parts, we can look at obse and associate it with obsession, and quious with yes. So obsessed with saying yes. Somebody is obsessed with saying yes. They don't know how to say no. They're obsequious. So now we have learned quite a few new words, right, through mnemonics. And mnemonics and word associations. So here it's not exactly a mnemonic, but you're looking at words within the word and bringing associations into it. In that way, we can consider it as a new technique as well. Now we are moving on to the next technique, root words. This is for you guys who are so fond of linguistics and word roots. So look at the root of words, look at the constituent elements of the words. Unlike other word associations we looked at earlier, here we are going to look at the logical units of a word. Dislike consists of the prefix dis and the root word like. So dis usually indicates something that is negative, something with a sense of not or no. So you know that it's something, it's negating the root word. So dislike, not like. If you add a suffix afterwards, likable is something, someone you can like or something you can like. Able means being able to do, right? So likable is being able to like. Usable is yet another example of the suffix able. So you don't have to remember all root words, but just pay attention. Like we encountered the word undeniable in a reading passage and we figured out it means something that you cannot deny, right? So for some words this is quite easy, but if you make it a point to observe root words, you can learn many words at once by using word webs. How do you construct a word web? Let me demonstrate. So take for example a root word like anim. Anim means moving or life or mind or soul. Now let's try to learn a few new words linked to this root word. Unanimity. So what is the prefix here? Un. Un can also be a prefix that denotes negativity, unforgettable, undesirable, not, with a sense of not, like the prefix dis we saw earlier. But here it conveys a sense of one, unanimity, uniform, that kind of prefix. So unanimity probably means one mind. So everyone thinks something with one mind. So see how I'm linking the prefix with the root word here. Now if I add the suffix in ity, it indicates that this is a noun. If you probably add a suffix like ate, it becomes an adjective or a verb. Magnanimity, what could this probably mean? Magno means big or large. So magnanimity means thinking with a big mind, being generous. So if you look at the meaning of this word in Google or on any other resource, you'll just find generous, and you have to remember that. But if you look at the root word, you just look at this root word and you learn a lot of words at once. Animate. So this is probably a verb or an adjective, right? You can animate something, or something as an animate object. So it can be a verb or an adjective, and you're just using the suffix ate. Again, you can add a prefix in to convey the sense of not animate, inanimate. Inanimate means something that does not have a life, does not have a mind, does not move. See how each word is linked to the root word. Equanimity means thinking with an equal mind, thinking with a balanced mind, being balanced in challenging or difficult situations. Okay. So with this single root word, you are looking at several words that you can learn at once. So maybe you can also look at common root words and list down words that you can learn together. Create word webs. So when you have something visual like this, it tends to stick in your mind. Let us now proceed to the next technique, which is that of creating stories. This is quite interesting for those of you who are fond of creative writing. So if you want to memorize a list of words, try to create a story with them. So it depends on how many words you are able to take at once, and also if the words can be connected. It doesn't matter if the story is logical or not. It's just to help you remember. If you enjoy the story, then that's perfectly fine. The story can be about anything. So we'll take a few words and try to create a story. This is just an example for you. Intriguing, insipid, ravenous, palatable, staple, bon vivant, earl, and hedonist. So how many of these words do you know? Maybe three? All? Let's see how we can create a story with this. Have you heard the story of Sandwich? It's one of the most intriguing stories, extremely interesting stories. Sandwich is a rustic town in England, a rural town. In 1762, John Montagu, the fourth Earl, a noble, prominent noble, was playing cards. He was a hedonist, a pleasure seeker, and a bon vivant, one who lives in luxury. He was ravenous, very hungry, but didn't want to leave the table. He ordered a waiter to bring roasted meat kept between two slices of bread. He thought that it would be insipid, but it turned out to be palatable. Since then, it has become a staple food for millions across the globe. So, see how all the words have been connected into a sensible story. Here, it's also interesting to note that these three words are somewhat similar. Hedonist is seeking someone who seeks pleasure. Bon vivant also means someone who seeks luxury. These two words are somewhat related. Ravenous denotes to desire for food, being hungry, right? So these three words are connected, and this will actually help you form a picture of this character and remember all these words at once. Right? These two words are opposites, and so you will likely remember them as well. Insipid is tasteless, and palatable is tasty. It's pleasant tasting. Palatable is not necessarily tasty, but something that is tasting pleasant in a general sense. Okay. So now you've seen how you can turn some boring words into an interesting story. If you are learning in a group, this is yet another useful technique that you can use. Now, maybe you are a person for whom one of these techniques work, and that's perfectly okay. But you can also try a mixture of these different techniques. Even students who speak fluent English have trouble with GRE vocabulary, and that's because, like we already discussed, these are words that you don't generally encounter in everyday language. So even if one of your instructors were to take a GRE test, they won't find it really easy. So don't be daunted by the GRE. Don't think it's impossible. Many people have done it before you. What you have to do is apply these different strategies and learn more words. But what is even more important is that you revise those words. You must go back to the words and practice them. You must make a list as you learn and frequently revise these words and practice among your friends, or if you're really shy, you can even practice on your own. It's completely okay. If you're comfortable speaking, use them in your speech, and also try to use them in your writing. This will also help you in your AWA section because you will be using these high-end vocabulary quite naturally. What do you do if the vocabulary is hard or complex? You practice. Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour. So learning vocabulary is a skill that takes time, but if you do it consistently, you can actually master it. Also, revise all the words that you have learned and review. Without revising and reviewing, there is no use if you learn all the 3,000 words that a list supplies you. It's important to revise as you learn. Finally, here are some resources for GRE vocabulary. Barron's book on essential words for GRE is quite a useful resource. Norman Lewis has quite an interesting book, Word Power Made Easy. It's a fascinating read. But remember that these words are not meant to be read like a novel. You have to work on these. These are workbooks. If you don't have time, here we also have our own vocabulary app, which I'll be talking about in the subsequent slide. Now, apart from vocabulary preparation, cultivate the habit of reading articles and journals. Then you will come across these words, and you can use a technique of learning from context and read articles from the New Yorker, the Atlantic, Scientific American, the Economist, the Washington Post, or any other similar reading material. Underline words you don't know, and master reading and vocabulary at the same time. How do you remember words if you are not good at memorizing? Flashcards is a tried and trusted method. So what you can do is you can cut out different small pieces of paper, write down the word, its meaning, a sample sentence, its synonyms, related words, or any word webs, all these things. It's time taking, but since you are actually putting an effort to write down the word, you are likely to remember the word and its meaning. Okay. And for some people, this actually works. And you can use carry these flashcards around, stick them at convenient spots on your study table or in your room. And the more you come across the word, you are likely to remember it. But what happens with most people is that we don't have time for all this. You are probably busy with your studies or with your work, and you hardly have time to read upon GRE. And vocabulary is not just the one thing. There are lots of things to learn, right? So we also suggest our Ultimate Vocabulary Builder app. This app uses flashcards and all the techniques that we discussed earlier, uses pictures to give you context on the words. There are linked words and word associations, word etymologies. All these things are given to help you with learning words. And remember, seeing is remembering. The more you see something, you tend to remember it. If you are a person who enjoys writing, you can also try writing diaries or articles or something using the words that you learn. You can also apply it in your other writings in college or work, and slowly make these words a part of your everyday language. This will reinforce your memory. Moving on to our vocabulary app. So this app is designed to make vocabulary prep enjoyable for you. The language used is very casual. It's not like a dictionary language where you have to further look words up in the dictionary. So you would have noticed this. When you look up words in dictionary, you don't understand the meaning given, and you have to go further and further, and you get tired, and the dictionary is really heavy. But here you are given meanings in an engaging and conversational style. You are given linked synonyms, antonyms, word etymologies, pictures, funny pictures, and cartoons. So this might be a good resource for you to start with. And it also introduces everything in a play mood. So you're given virtual money that you can earn. You're given funny pictures like these that will help you remember words. And you play the words again through quizzes. If you master a word, it's sent to the mastered section. If you're still learning, that is marked on the app too. So you can keep a track of what you know and don't know, instead of forming a list and spending all that time. Okay. If you regularly spend some time on the vocabulary app, you'll be in a great shape to attend the vocabulary questions on the GRE. With that, I'm done. I'll give over to Ramya so that you can ask your questions.
Sure, Ashwati. Thank you so much for the informative session. Until the time you take a short break and answer the questions, a quick talk on our applications by Soumya ma'am. So, ma'am, shall we start?
Thank you, Ashwati. That was a wonderful presentation. Is there a root word list specifically meant for GRE? Of course, yes. We do have that on the vocab app. You could look at it, and there is also a lot of words that are there on the web app also. When you start enrolling, right, when you start working on the galvanized verbal part of it, you will encounter a lot of word list, lot of what do I say? You have like a list of words that you need to learn. That's all part of the videos and the slides. It's all there. Yeah. Thank you, Pam. For this, Galvanized app is the best, if I must say. Of course, yes, we have got lots of raving reviews for our vocabulary app. So as Ashwati mentioned, GRE verbal preparation, that stands on this pillar vocabulary. Unless and until you master vocabulary, right, it's going to be really, really difficult for you to crack this GRE verbal, because whether it's reading comprehension passage or your sentence completion, sentence equivalence, or text completion, or any question type in GRE verbal requires you to have mastery over the vocabulary, right? So there are like close to 1,800 words, right, that you need to remember. So memorizing words, it's not an easy task. So for that, if you look at it, we have our ultimate GRE vocabulary app that you could download on the Play Store. The link was given to you. You could also have the link, get the details from Ramya. So how does this gaming app works? The set of 30 words that's thrown to you when you start logging in to download and install that app. Then the app places words in different levels for user based on the responses to questions. So the main goal for the user is to try and there is a level to which you want to move the words. You want to move the words to master, in the sense you have to really master that word. Master in the sense, understand the synonyms for the word, understand the usage of the word, like how Ashwati really mentioned that it's not only every word, right? If you look at the word lucid, for example, it means like clear, it means shiny, it means luminous. So many different meanings are conveyed. and where do you aptly fit that word into the sentence? That is what matters. That is what is the greatest challenge in cracking GRE verbal, right? So for that, you need to master that word. Mastery means you need to understand which context and all the words the word can be used. There are several meanings for the word. In each sentence, it could convey a different meaning, right? So all that nuances you need to learn. That mastery of that word, that is very important. All those things you will learn like a game. When you download and install this vocabulary app, right? You will learn it like a game, and once you master that word, understand the context in which the word is used, understand its synonyms and all that, it will move to a mastery level. There's also an equivalent of a boss level. Like, we will give you some virtual money. Suppose you start with $0 or say $100. We'll start with $100. And as and when you start mastering the words, right, the virtual money keeps increasing. Suppose you say you have got $1,000 virtual money. Of course, we will not give you $1,000. That's a virtual money. That's what it means. So if you have gained that $1,000, assume that you gained that 1,000 points, only then the next set of words will be unlocked for you. Till such time, you have to make sure that you go back and keep looking at the words till you master those. That's one set of words there. Right? Now, this is how our vocabulary app looks like once you log in and install and get into the vocabulary app. You will be first introduced to some 60 word sets. Then once you open one set, you will have a few 30 words in a set, right? And then you start answering the questions related to the words, each word, right? Then suppose you get some words wrong, right? You can always go back and review those words, whatever word that you've got wrong. Now, once you do this, after you complete it, suppose before you even review it, you want to unlock the third set, right? You will not be allowed to do so. You have to get a minimum of say $10,000, right? The virtual money before you unlock the next set of words. That is how vocabulary app is structured in that way. So what is the pedagogy for learning the words, right? As Ashwati mentioned in the webinar, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words. You need to learn to associate a word to the context in which it is used. So most of us are visual learners. We are able to, most of us, I believe, right? We can associate a word with a picture, with a scenario, with a context, rather than just memorizing that word. That is much easier for us, right? So in this vocabulary app, we associate every word with a picture, every word with a context, and then we also have the phonetics for that word. How to spell that word, how that word is pronounced, all those things, so that it internalizes in you. It gets registered in you automatically. You associate whenever that word, you look at that word, immediately you think of the pictures associated with that word and the sentences in which it can be used. All those things are part of the app. So the learner should remember the meaning of the word in different contexts. A learner should remember the meaning of the word at any later point of time. This is very, very important. As Ashwati mentioned, practice. Practice makes a man perfect, but perfect practice is what is very important. How do you practice? See, all of us can practice, right? For example, when you do the math problems and all that, you could do like 20,000 problems. But 20,000 problems, doing 20,000 problems blindly is not going to be of any use. You have to learn to apply the strategies properly. Even if you do 100 problems, applying the strategy properly, that is what is called as perfect practice. Right? Perfect practice helps you to get a perfect score in both verbal and quant crack your GRE. So, remembering the words at a later point of time, that is very, very important. After some time, right, you have finished the learning for your GRE, finished preparing for your GRE, and you are taking a break in between. And then you're coming back to revise this and near your exams. At that point of time, again, you need to recollect those words. So, are you able to remember those words using our vocabulary app? That is also possible, right? We will help you to recollect the words that you had already mastered. So, if you look at it, so as I told you, for every word, for example, that is this word malign, malignant, right? So that could be associated with a tumor, or it could be maligned, depending on the context. It is used in a different sense, right? If you look at it, right? So if you can associate this word malign with the pictures here, it will be easier for you to relate it to the context, use it properly in the sentences, use it properly in the text completion sentences and all that, fill the blanks easily. So here you have, for every word, as Ashwati mentioned, there are synonyms, there are advanced synonyms, antonyms given for every word, and the etymology of the word is also given, the root for that, and also how to pronounce that word, all are part of the vocabulary app. So it's very, very easy for you to master those nearly 1,800 words that are very much required for your GRE preparation. This app also checks the ability to recall the meaning of a word after a certain period of time has elapsed from when you learn the word. There is something called as memory mode in the vocabulary app. So whatever words that you had already mastered, that will be put in the memory mode. You can always go back and look at the memory mode to look at the words that you had already revised. So all these are possible with our vocabulary app. So these are the features that I wanted to stress on. So there are two things to crack an exam, right? One is mastery of the concepts. The second thing is applying the strategies within that time limit that we have. So both are possible when you use the proper resources. Apply the strategies effectively and also master these words. Master these words properly, right? That is possible only through such resources like this galvanized vocab app. Clear? I hope you have all got a clue about our vocab app, and you will be like tempted to download and install our vocab app. That is going to be really, really useful. Once Samath is asking, once these words are mastered, we won't see them again because mastered only 650 words now, but I want to revise them again. How can I do it? Yes, Samath, there is a way for that. Yeah, I'll reply you in the chat, or you could contact the number that's given to you at the end of this webinar, right? We'll share you the number. We'll tell you the strategy to relook at them. Yes, there is a possibility to look at those words. Okay. Yes.